so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. All right, all you positive heads, welcome, welcome. Here we go again. It is a magical Monday here in the studio as I record, and I'm doing just fine on this fall afternoon. October it is, and man, can you believe we're almost 2024? Where does time go? It's definitely feels like it's speeding up for me. I don't know if you guys are the same, but yeah, what a trip. But that being said, the world is a wild, weird place right now for sure. I think a lot of people are sort of scared and worried, and you know, I was talking about this the other day with someone. Like, I have no idea what's coming, what's next, but I trust it. And that is such a good feeling. Like, time's flying. You're like, it's so easy to fall into, time's passing me by. I'm getting older. Any of those. It's like, whatever. We're in eternity. We're floating in eternity. We've always been. We always will be. And that brings peace. It brings peace to me. I hope it brings peace to you as well. And I think the more we can take on that sort of perspective, the easier it gets. The easier it is to be the eye of this, the calm in the eye of the storm, or the eye of the storm, I guess you would say. With all the madness of the world raging around you, you're not as affected. And I think a lot of that goes with, I just got off of an 8-day water fast, which never done that. I've done 3 days in the past. And, a lot of it for me was just really seeing if I had the willpower to do it. Of course, there's an incredible amount of data on all the health benefits. Highly recommend checking it out if you haven't. But, one of the things that was great about it for me that I didn't really count on is it slows your heart rate down. And those of you listening to the podcast for a long time, or even not that long, you've probably heard about me talking about, as I sort of transparently share, my biggest challenge with my own growth is being very fiery and that same force that can, it's such a creative, powerful force, but the dark side of it, the shadow side of it, can be agitation and irritation and those sorts of things. And I found that, like, I literally went through, while I was fasting, some of the most challenging things. It was a very challenging time, like work-wise, and just, I spent 5 hours working on our internet, just going down. It's like as if I didn't have enough on my plate. Like, how about a all-day marathon resetting routers and, all that, that kind of thing. And I remember like 4 hours in thinking, oh my gosh, how many times have something like this happened to me in years past where I would just kind of lose my cool with it, right? And I just didn't lose my cool at all the whole time. It was like that slow. I feel like it really showed me how important it is to slow down and keep your composure in the face of maybe something that would otherwise trigger you. And so yeah, that felt like a real win. And like I said, if you haven't looked into fasting that much, I mean, some of the top line, I'm gonna just share some of the benefits because they're so profound. I mean, they really realize it's now, aside from sleep, probably the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. I mean, you go into autophagy after a very short time. I mean, as little as like 16 hours, where you start burning ketones instead of glucose, which is a normal way your body is normally burning glucose, sugar, right? And so ketones are more effective, make your brain sharper in a lot of ways, and it's now you're burning fat. Um, yeah, you just move into a different state. It's using you're using a different fuel, and so autophagy, it starts like taking all the defunct cells and things in your body and using those as fuel. So it's like, oh, this one's old and beat down. Let's recycle it. Let's recycle it. And then what happens when you start eating again? So 8 days of that, just like for me, and clearing out all the old cells. Then when I start eating again, I create new stem cells to replace them, except they're fresh baby cells, right? So what a cool thing that we can turn on stem cell production, right? You know how much money people pay to get stem cells and like this type of treat, or human growth hormone goes through the roof. So it's like the best anti-aging thing. Reboot your immune system after 3 days, and it just such. I mean, there's just like myriad amount of benefits. So I recommend looking into it. And it's really easier than you'd think. Um, it, the first day 2 and day 3, I would say, are the hardest, and then it gets easier. 3 was the roughest day for me. 2 wasn't even that bad. I did stuff, set up Halloween decorations and stuff the whole day. And yeah, we got a 13-foot Jack Skellington here at the Mystic Manor. That's super cool to set that up. And yeah, um, it really, for me, my experience, some people say they completely stop being hungry. I always felt a little hunger, but it's like kind of like if you haven't eaten since the morning and it's nighttime and you're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry now. I mean, that's the level of hunger, which is very manageable. If you just ignore it, you just kind of forget about it and whatever. And so it's, probably the hardest thing was I'm so used to moving fast and I had to slow down because my heart rate is slower and I would get a head rush when I'd move too fast and things like that. But yeah, otherwise, something definitely worth checking into. And yeah, just wanted to share a little bit there with you guys today. And also a little, since tis the season of spookiness, you guys probably remember a few weeks ago I shared about sort of lessons around one of the roommates here at the manor, borrowing my girlfriend's car and then getting in a wreck. And it's sort of, if you heard those episodes where I talked about it, us kind of like sort of judging his way of reacting to it and thinking maybe he was exaggerating some of his stuff around it. And then what do you know, the next day, Karen, my partner, is driving my car and then she gets hit. And it was like sort of, and then I had a guest who talked about getting hit and how it made her lose Amy Belair and how she lost her baby. And so I kind of tied all this together. I won't go through all that again, but it was like, wow, what's going on with this like car related stuff? Well, so our cars have both been in the shop for a long time. Karen just picked hers up and they left one piece off that was still, coming. I guess they had sent the wrong piece. So the guy was like, look, you can take it and bring it back in a few days and then drive by and I'll pop it on. And so she went to do that today and she got a flat tire. She hit one of those like little scooters that, at least here in Venice Beach, we have them everywhere where you can just rent them. Someone had left it laying on the ground where you couldn't see it, and or she missed it and she was turning a corner and ran over it and it popped her tire. So then she was supposed to meet up with another roomie here in the house. They're going to do some sound healing stuff together. And the other roomie messaged her and said, hey, I'm late because somehow there's a gash in the side of my tire and I need to change my tire. And like literally at the same time they're supposed to be getting together and they're both sitting on the side of the road with gashes in their tires. like the other person didn't even know how it happened. They were like confused by it. So it's like, wow, what quantum entanglement weirdness is that? So it the card saga continues, but it just really goes to show how it's all so entangled, right? I mean, what a trip that they're going to meet up and making sort of a plan, and they can't make it because they're both having the same experience. Like I mean, I don't know when I've had a flat tire, right? And so, yeah, I thought that was a little spookiness for weird quantum madness that is transpiring here today. Before we continue on with today's episode, for those of you interested in getting more fantastic fungi in your life, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about a friend of mine's brand new company, The Great Mother. Recently, I have been drinking the Great Mother's superfood mushroom coffee alternative called Ritual, as well as regularly taking their awesome Ally microdoses, and I am truly loving both. As you probably know, these days many of the world's highest achievers and performers swear by microdosing. The problem is it can still be difficult to get a hold of magic mushrooms. That's why when my friend reached out, who lives in an area and country where legalization is not a problem like it was in the past, and said he'd be willing to offer microdoses to my listeners, I wanted to pass the word along. Ally microdoses are 100% organic. And in addition to a small amount of the magic active ingredient, they also contain functional mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, and other brain boosters like bacopa. Ally is essentially a full spectrum nootropic. And of course, the coffee alternative Ritual doesn't contain magic mushrooms, but it has an array of the best organic functional mushrooms in the world. And, with functional mushrooms, it's really important to get them from the highest integrity sources. And whereas some other highly popular mushroom coffee alternatives on the market only contain a few varieties of functional mushrooms in their actual ingredients, Ritual has 7. Not only does it contain more types, it also contains 3 to 4 times the amount that the big brands have in each serving, and it tastes amazing. I actually like to have it on its own, as well as mixing it into my coffee sometimes as well. However, since this is definitely a unique offering, there are a few steps. First, just reach out and request to follow the private page, thegreat.mother on Instagram. Once you've been accepted to follow, just message what you're interested in getting and someone will get back to you. Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to really touch on with today's episode is something that has kind of occurred to me. And, as I like to often share, is I have my own realization about things, just kind of passing them along to you guys. And on what day was it? Saturday, I came home and one of the roomies here works some with Shaman Durek, who you may know his podcast, Ancient Wisdom. And, he's Durek and I have been on each other's shows multiple times over the years. And, he is quite the, one of a kind individual. He was actually on the Late Night Style show I filmed, Optimistic. He was the very first guest that I had. And definitely recommend checking him out and some of the stuff he puts out there. He's got a pretty big Instagram following, does a lot on social media, etc. But so I hadn't hung out in person with him in a long time, and he was here, and we got to spend, I don't know, 3-4 hours together. And it was a really great reminder for me of something. Of course, it's always reflections of self, extensions of self that are reflecting some part of you back to you. And he really, I really appreciated this drop in with him, particularly because a lot of the time we've been on podcasts together, or, when he's on Optimistic, it's like we're filming, there's lots of people here. So it's really the deepest dive we've ever had sitting together. And, what I loved about him is I was talking about some of my own challenges and whatever. And he's like, he's so confident in owning who and what he is. And he's so now multidimensional in his approach and perspective. And, of course, he claims to be able to see and perceive, things multidimensionally all the time, and tap into the guy down the road at the, gym running on the treadmill. And, he's 4th generation, I believe, shaman from, Africa. And and a spirit shaman, as he'll put it. Um, I think his book Spirit Hacking gives a lot of his like techniques he shares with people and things. But so he's tapping in as we're talking, and accessing all kinds of information, and just full on experience. He's always a full on experience, and he's got a lot of insight and wisdom. And um, it really helped me to. I was really appreciated sharing that time with him, because I'm so good at telling good stories about myself. As I always say, the only thing I'm good at is telling good stories about myself, and I'll add to that most of the time. Because then there's times where I really fall into like a matrixy perspective about, here's why something didn't work or isn't working, or why I'm struggling, and why and just being around him, he's so flamboyant and so over the top. Now, well, not over the top, but just larger than life, right? And here's a guy. What's great about it is, he actually reminds me of an old roommate here, Eric, who I love as like a brother, who's newer on his spiritual journey. And what's great about Eric is he's so excited about his spirituality and seeing things from the grandest perspective, but in a very excitable way. Where I've been on this journey like 25 years, and so sometimes I can be very like down to earth, in not necessarily a good way. Right. And so Eric, I always would say, what I love about it, it's like going to Burning Man with someone for the first time. You've been 10 times, and now all of a sudden you're seeing it through fresh eyes. So he always brought that, like, we can do anything. It's so magical. You are, see from your higher self kind of thing. And Durek is the exact same way. The difference is from someone who's newer on the journey versus someone who has literally, get this, one of the things Durek shared with me, he's engaged to the Princess of Norway. Now, that's the whitest country on the planet, arguably, one of them for sure, right? He is a black bisexual shaman. So what he shared with me the other day is like, he's like, Brandon, I'm like actually about to marry into the royal family. I am the first black man to marry into the royal family, any royal family in the entire history of Europe. Like, think about that. What a monumental like feat and breaking of the old paradigm that he represents. And so you look at someone who's, in his case, like larger than life, seen as he is source, seeing no duality, not seeing, I mean, as we're talking for hours and hours, it's like, it's all talking to my son about his issue with seeing these entities in his room. And Derek's like, yeah, it's a succubus. It's, giving him, and it's there to only make you more and better. It's like serving you. Like everything is like just there serving you. It's not bad. It's good. It's happening for good. It's all, and just seeing from that higher, zoomed out perspective of your higher self. And what kind of result, I always say, you can have a lot of theories and ideas and claims about things, but what kind of results has it gotten you? Well, in his case, it's gotten him to be, where he's going to be in the first black man in the royal family in Europe, right? Like, wow. And so I just love, taking that reflection. And I walked away from that, spending that time with him. And it's such a beautiful reminder that, um, that we are so much more in any time than we're giving ourselves credit for. And whenever we're playing small or telling a small story about, things, which I fall into too, right? Especially in certain things where it's like maybe where I have more work to do than other areas. And as I say on this show all the time, we teach best what we most need to learn. So it was a great reflection. And so I really wanted to just reflect it back to you guys today. You are literally source. You are it. Look at any place in your life where you're telling a small story, and think about Durek, and think about the fact of what he's in the process of and accomplishing. And just one example. I mean, he's, of course, he's human and he's flawed and he's got things to work on just like everyone else. He's got challenges. He's had health issues. He's had all those things. And yet he's so turned on by the fact that he is this all powerful creator being in the physical, and he can be the space for anything, and just truly take on a grandiose perspective, in a way that gets results that are beyond magical, unprecedented in the history of the world, in this example I'm using. So I really wanted to make today about sharing that with each and every one of you, like remembering who you are. You're hearing this story. You're hearing this podcast because that is you. Now, stop. Are you telling the story that you are literally source consciousness incarnate, playing a role of the avatar that you are embodied in? And saying, "Oh my gosh, I am it. I should be so lit up and excited." And there are no obstacles that can get in my way. I created the idea of an obstacle. You literally invented the idea just so you could know thyself. What a trip, right? And then you buy these stories that you've sold yourself that keep you small and limited, as if there's anything that could hold you back if you really, really remembered and tapped into who and what you are. Like, what a joke to pretend to be. A lot of people have had these experiences. I've heard this multiple times over the years from different people having spiritual experiences, whether it's a near-death experience, whether it's a profound healing where they were out of their body and then came back in, or a dream. Like, my sister had one time where she's soaring through the cosmos and then, all of a sudden back in her body, and it felt so small and constricting and kind of even dirty. Like, oh my God, I don't want to go back in that. How do I fit in that little thing? I remember a friend saying, it was like, how do I fit my vastness into that little vessel? And that's what we've done. And I've heard that story time and time and time again. You have crammed this incredible being into this tiny vessel, and then you've bought the story of the vessel and the surrounding vessels that have sold you on lack, limitation. You become a jar jumper, right? Like, if you take fleas and you put them in a jar, they jump right out every time. They can jump like crazy. If you've ever seen a flea jump, like a mason jar, right? Now put a lid on that mason jar, and what will happen? The fleas will jump to the top until they hit themselves, their heads, and then they'll lower just below it, right? Now go ahead, after a while of them jumping in the jar with the lid on, take the lid off. Completely free. They're completely free to get out. But guess what? They just jump in the same place without ever going beyond where the lid was, because they've been trained that that's where the ceiling is. That's the limit. That's all I can accomplish. I can't go any further. And guess what? It's a lie. And you've been lying to yourself. You've been lied to. If a black bisexual shaman can marry into the royal family in the whitest place on the planet, Norway, you can do anything. And he is, if you talk to him and hear from him, you listen to his podcast, he's been on this show multiple times. You can search in our archives. I mean, you can hear, it's like someone lit up with the remembering and literally tapping into the power of who and what they are, that they are source. And so are you. That's the good news. And so I invite you today to tap into your magic, to tap into your ancient witchy ways, as this song I'm about to play touches on, and just start becoming like that child, dreaming and playing magic, and just calling on all the power that's been dormant, waiting for you to reclaim it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Hope you like this new song by my dear friend Ruby Chase and Clarity. Ruby Chase and Clarity just came out. I felt like it was a perfect one for the season. It's called Good Witch. And yeah, Ruby is such a gem, pun intended. Hope you enjoy this song. Till next time, journey well. Love you so, so much.
Oof, you playing with a good witch, with that magic like oh shift. Oof, you playing with a good witch, with that magic like oh shift. And I know what I want, and we know what we like, and we're calling you up. Now's the time to do right. Bubble, bubble, it's no trouble. Abracadabra on the double. We make it rain when we build a bundle. Good with the monsters and the muggles. Dance with the wolves on a full moon. We're burning away all the old news. Calling us up for a read soon. Bringing the spark of a new boom. You playing with a good witch, with that magic like oh shift. Oof, you playing with a good witch, with that magic like oh shift. And I know what I want, and we know what we like, and we're calling you up. Now's the time to do right. Right. Right.
Right. Right.
Shake, shake, shake till the dawn. Wake, 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 and it's on. Cooking up the style for our favorite song.
Wave, 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 what you want? Shake, 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 shake till the dawn. Wake, 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 and it's on.
Cooking up the style for our favorite song.
We no longer hiding it. We flying high and writing it. Intention clear, defining it. And vibing while designing 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 it.
Rock with the witch who came from a myth. She rides on her broom and she sounds like this. You playing with the light side. Tight crew with the high vibe. Right place and right time. Hufflepuff with the ratchet side.
Oof, you playing with a good witch. With that magic like oh shift. You playing with a good witch. With that magic like oh shift. Oh shift.
Oh, shift. What you want?
Playing with a
Till the dawn.
break till the dawn.
What you want?
Playing with a
Till the dawn.